The Epic Game Store may not have as many free games as Steam or itch.io, but that doesn't mean there aren't some hidden gems worth playing. Here are the top 5 free Epic games you don't know about. Rumbleverse is a combat-centered wrestling battle royale game where 40 players brawl it out to KO and knock each other out of an ever-shrinking arena. After creating this unit, I was ready to get into a match. You launch from a cannon and descend upon the map where you scavenge loot and items to gain an advantage. Like other battle royale games, there are items of different rarities, but here you gain up to 2 wrestling moves. Though there are weapons like bats you can use that break after a certain number of hits or can be thrown at opponents. There are items that give you permanently increased stamina, attack power, and health, or increased health and stamina regeneration, which is good to use before a fight. Items you don't use immediately can be stored in one of 4 inventory slots for later. The combat is centered around stamina since almost everything you do besides your basic attack costs stamina. The combat has a lot of depth with your typical attack, block, and dodge moves, but you can also sprint around and body slam opponents, which was one of my favorites. There's tons of different combos to learn, especially when combined with the different wrestling moves you equipped. The shrinking ring is a bit different compared to other battle royales. Instead of taking damage, you have 10 seconds to get back in the ring, which works well in the closing stages if you can knock your opponent out for that long instead of burning through all their health. There are both solo and duo modes, but I always have more fun running solos. If you're looking for a unique brawler-style wrestling battle royale game with tons of depth to combat, then I recommend Rumbleverse. Century Age of Ashes is a multiplayer arena combat game where players fight each other on dragons. It controls a lot like an airplane combat game like War Thunder, as you try to outposition opponents to line yourself up behind them. Though the core of the game is dogfighting, the dragon powers in various arenas set the combat apart. There are 4 different classes of dragons, 3 of which are unlocked immediately, each having their own passive and active abilities. The abilities make each class distinct in combat and encourage team play. Around arenas there are shield pickups, health pickups, wind blessings that give you unlimited stamina for a limited time, and air columns that launch you upwards and refill your stamina. The stamina is used to fly faster temporarily, but costs 1 of 4 stamina charges. There are 3v3 and 6v6 modes to play depending on which one you prefer, with different game modes for each. There's Skirmish, which is like Team Deathmatch, Carnage where the team with the most points at the end wins, Gates of Fire where you have to fly a flag through as many gates as you can, and Spoils of War where both teams collect gold by attacking AI dragons and have to bring it back to their base to score points. If you're looking for an aerial combat dragon game with unique abilities, then I recommend Century Age of Ashes. Kid Amnesia Exhibition is a surreal fever dream exploration game built from the art, creatures, words, and recordings of Radiohead's Kid A and Amnesiac albums. This is one of the most immersive games I've ever played, but it's definitely more of an experience than a game. There's no real goal as you wander from area to area in the dark, trippy world, taking in the sights and sounds. I don't really know how to explain it other than that each room gives you an entirely different feeling, some of which caused me to physically react. The soundtrack isn't just Radiohead songs thrown in the game, as there's an original soundtrack in combination with Radiohead songs to evoke a certain feeling in each area. There's some common themes you see throughout the game, but each area is visually distinct. It's one of the prettiest games I've ever played, so if you're looking for a surreal atmospheric experience with an excellent soundtrack, then I recommend Kid Amnesia Exhibition. MultiVersus is an online platform fighting game where you play as various characters from Warner Bros. Properties. If you've played Smash Bros, you'll know the concept, but the character movesets and combat feel a bit different. The combat has directional, regular, and special attacks for offense, and dodges for defense. but no grab or shield, which makes fights much more offensive compared to other platform fighters. You only start out with one character unlocked, but can play other ones that are on a timed rotation and earn gold for completing matches and doing missions. You can then spend gold in the shop, which is how you purchase other characters to play as. Every time you play with a character, they gain XP and level up, which unlocks perks for them, granting them a small buff if you equip it. As for game modes, there's your classic 1v1, team mode where it's a 2v2, and free-for-all where 4 players compete to get the most total knockouts and items spawn in for everyone to use. As for the maps, they're okay, but there's just not enough of them in general, even with the few that have been added since launch. If you're looking for a more simplistic platform fighter with tons of characters to unlock, then I recommend MultiVersus. Dauntless is a cooperative multiplayer action RPG where players work together to take down monsters. If you've played Monster Hunter, you'll be familiar with the gameplay loop of hunting down monsters in order to get materials you need to craft better gear. Obviously, I didn't get very far since there's 7 different weapon types to upgrade and a massive skill tree you progress through as you level up. You're given quests from people around the hub town and then go to one of the many different zones to fight monsters and gather materials to work towards completing the quest. Each zone is distinct because of the level suggestion, as there are unique monsters that attack in different ways and the monsters are scaled to that area's level. Combat strategy is dependent on which weapon you use, but each weapon makes you fight in a different way, having its own combos. Around arenas are rifts which you can use to heal, keeping you in the fight along with a limited amount of health potions. Working with other players is important, as you won't die unless everyone in the combat zone dies, but all reap the rewards if you win the fight. If you're looking for a monster hunting action RPG all about the grind, then I recommend Dauntless. One epic bonus game! Pinball FX is a pinball game with tons of different tables where you try to get the highest score possible. Because the game is free, you have to pay to unlock different pinball machines permanently, but you do have access to 2 different ones that rotate every day. Other than that, the game is pretty much standard pinball, just like you'd play at an arcade. It's more cinematic though, with different camera angles, and is just as addicting. So if you're looking for a solid pinball game, then I recommend Pinball FX. Those were the top 5 free Epic games you didn't know about. I'll have my playlist of free Steam games and free itch.io games you don't know about linked in the description. Thanks for watching, give me money on Patreon, and don't forget to like and subscribe to keep up with this ongoing series.